She parked her $60,000 BMW in my garage without asking, then fined me $200 for leaving the door open. 6 weeks later, I owned her house, and she was crying into my voicemail begging me not to foreclose while the entire neighborhood watched. But it didn't start with revenge. It started with exhaustion, humiliation, and one very bad Tuesday night. My name's Jake Morrison, 34 electrician single dad to an 8-year-old girl named Emma. I'd saved for 6 years, eating ramen and pulling overtime just to buy a modest 3-bedroom in Willowbrook Estates, middle-class heaven. My real prize wasn't the house. It was the garage. 2 bays concrete floor, my grandpa's old workbench, that satisfying metallic rumble when the door closed at night. It was the one place that was mine where sawdust mixed with motor oil and the world stayed quiet. For about 6 months, life was good. The neighbors' waved lawns looked like magazine covers. The HOA fee was a reasonable $180 a month. Simple rules: keep it clean, keep it quiet. I figured if I just followed them, I'd be fine. That illusion shattered the day I met Brenda Whitfield, 52, surgically cheerful designer. Everything the kind of woman who smells like money and control. She was the HOA treasurer, which apparently made her queen of Willowbrook. Her husband Brad worked in city planning, a fact she weaponized like a sword. The first time she came for me, I was installing safety lights for Mrs. Chen, an elderly widow. I felt a shadow and heard heels clicking like judgment itself. "Excuse me," she said, clutching her clipboard like a Bible. "I don't see permits posted for this electrical work." I showed her my state license, tried to explain it was just security lighting. She smiled, sharp as glass. "We'll verify that with my husband. We can't have questionable contractors lowering our property values." That word questionable tasted metallic in my mouth. From that moment on, she made my life her hobby. Every week someone got cited. Mrs. Chen's wind chimes were aesthetic violations. Tom Rodriguez got fined for parking his work truck in his own driveway. Kids scattered when they heard her heels. The whole neighborhood lived in fear of that clipboard. I stayed under the radar trimming grass to precisely 2.75 inches, keeping my van off the driveway, avoiding eye contact. But one humid Tuesday evening I came home from a 12-hour shift. Boots heavy, hands raw, dreaming of a cold beer and my half-finished treehouse project for Emma. I opened the garage and stopped dead. There it was, Brenda's pearl-white BMW X5 parked dead center in my garage, perfectly aligned like it belonged there. The smell of leather and perfume drowned out the scent of motor oil and sawdust. For 30 seconds I just stared, wondering if exhaustion was making me hallucinate. Then the car alarm chirped once, that smug little beep that seemed to say, "I belong here." You don't. I walked to the front porch and there she was, sitting in my patio chair like she owned the place, scrolling her phone. "Excuse me," I said carefully, "but there's a car in my garage." She looked up, all fake sympathy. "Oh, Jake, my driveway's being sealed tomorrow. Emergency situation. HOA emergency parking clause allows temporary use of available spaces during maintenance." I pulled up the HOA bylaws on my phone. "There's no such clause." She smoothed her skirt. "We're currently revising the bylaws. Consider this a pilot program for community cooperation." That was the moment I decided not to yell. I hit record instead. "So just to confirm," I said, calm as stone, "you admit this emergency clause doesn't exist yet, but you're testing it by parking in my private garage without permission." Her face twitched. "You can't record me." "Actually, I can," I said. "One-party consent, and we're on my property." She tried to grab my phone. I stepped back. "Brad will hear about this," she snapped. "Good," I said. "I'd love to know the city's stance on fake HOA rules." The next morning there was a bright yellow notice taped to my door. "Failure to maintain community standards. Garage left open overnight. Fine $75, escalating to $200. A handwritten note underneath. "Maybe next time you'll be more cooperative. B." I called Derek, my college buddy turned real estate lawyer. He laughed so hard he nearly choked. "Jake, she just handed you evidence of harassment. Keep everything, every message, every photo. We're going to bury her in her own paperwork." At lunch, I drove to the county office and dug through the HOA and corporation files. The clerk smelled like old coffee and dust. And there it was. The HOA maps were based on preliminary surveys. My property deed showed my garage was fully legally mine. The HOA had zero jurisdiction over it. When I got home, Brenda had doubled down. Her BMW was still in my garage, and now a black Mercedes sat beside it. My tool cabinet, worth $3,000, had been shoved aside, padlocked with a brand new lock. A sticky note on my grandfather's old Vice read, "Temporary relocation for staging. Community cooperation appreciated. B.W." That's when the rage hit, cold-focused. I called the non-emergency police line. Officer Martinez showed up 20 minutes later, solid guy, calm voice. After I explained everything, he looked around and said, "Sir, this looks like harassment. Property deed trumps HOA every time. She needs to move those cars before this becomes criminal." Brenda tried to argue with him, claiming it was community business. Watching her try to explain to a cop why she had the right to lock up someone else's tools was better than TV. He warned her to remove the cars by sundown. I thought that might end it. It didn't. Friday morning, I woke to find a neighborhood-wide email from Brenda accusing me of security violations and endangering property values. The same afternoon, I found out her husband Brad had filed a city report claiming my work van violated a commercial vehicle ordinance. My van was parked on a public street. There was no ordinance. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the violation notice and asked myself if it was worth it. Maybe I should just let it go, pay the fine, move on. I was tired of fighting, tired of paperwork, tired of feeling like the bad guy for defending what was mine. For a second, I even wondered if I was overreacting. Maybe I was the difficult one. Then Emma called. "Daddy, is my treehouse going to be ready?" I swallowed hard. "We might have to work around some obstacles, sweetheart." "Is the mean lady being mean again?" she asked. "Yeah, baby," I said quietly. "But Daddy's learning how to be mean back. The right way." That was my turning point. With Derek's help, I gathered proof, forged invoices, double-billed landscaping, even HOA funds routed through Brenda's home staging business. But the smoking gun came from Brad's city email public record. Lines like, "Target working-class homeowners for maximum leverage." My hands shook as I read it. They weren't just power tripping. They were running a scam. Monday's emergency HOA meeting was my moment. Brenda sat at the cafeteria table in a navy blazer like she was running Congress. I hit record again. Before we start, I said I'd like to review the HOA's insurance and incorporation documents. Her smile faltered. "Those are being reviewed by legal counsel." "No problem," I said, spreading my copies across the table. "I already got them from the county office. And funny thing, your insurance doesn't cover personal business activity, like say using HOA resources for your staging company." You could hear a pin drop. Then I slid forward one last sheet, Brad's email. "Wife's staging business needs 3-month access cycles. Recommend escalating HOA pressure on Morrison property for client presentation timeline." Her face drained of color. The room buzzed. "That's out of context," she stammered. "Context," I said, "is about to become a felony." She stood, knocking her chair over. "This meeting is over," but it wasn't. Derek called me the next morning, voice low and serious. "Jake, sit down. You just blew open a statewide investigation. The Attorney General's office has been tracking municipal fraud. Your case is Exhibit A. They're coordinating with federal agents." My little HOA war had turned into organized crime. That night, Derek, Mrs. Chen, Tom, and Sarah, our unofficial resistance, met in my kitchen. Mrs. Chen brought a shoebox of records dating back 5 years. Tom, a former Marine, had been quietly mapping Brenda's patrols and photographing her violations. Sarah, the school teacher, had spreadsheets of every complaint posted in the neighborhood Facebook group. We were ready. Derek said, "She's a narcissist. If you disappear for a while, she'll implode." So I did. 2 weeks off the grid with Emma camping in Yellowstone. No phone, no internet, no HOA. I told myself it was for strategy, but honestly, it was for my sanity. 3 days in, while Emma stacked river rocks by the creek, my satellite pager buzzed. Message from Tom. "She's lost her mind. Call when you can." I hiked up to get a signal. Tom's voice came through half amused, half incredulous. Day 1, she tried to break into your garage with a crowbar. Day 2 called a locksmith claiming it was an HOA emergency. Day 3 brought an electrical inspector, lied about dangerous wiring. He nearly cited her for filing false reports. I laughed the first real laugh in weeks. Then he dropped his voice. Last night she tried again. Midnight. I confronted her. She said she heard strange noises and was ensuring community safety. I got the whole thing on camera. By day 7, she was unraveling publicly, posting at 2 a.m. about irresponsible residents. The comments turned against her fast. Even Mrs. Patterson, the neighborhood gossip, wrote, "Maybe people who break into garages at midnight shouldn't talk about safety." 2 days later, Sarah texted. She hired someone. Apparently, Brenda had paid a random guy $200 cash to cut my padlock and retrieve staging materials. He showed up with bolt cutters and no permit. Tom caught him, called the cops, and the man immediately ratted her out. Officer Martinez took her statement and called in backup. The next morning, state investigators executed a search warrant on Brenda's house. News vans rolled up. Cameras caught her screaming in a bathrobe while agents carried out boxes of financial records. Brad was arrested at City Hall. Turns out they'd been flipping properties across a dozen HOAs using fake violations to force sales. Millions in fraud. When Emma and I came home from Yellowstone, the neighborhood looked like a movie set. Reporters' police tape, neighbors gossiping in clusters. Her BMW was still parked in my garage, now covered in dust and shame. Channel 7 wanted an interview. They called me the homeowner who exposed HOA corruption. I just wanted my garage back. That night we held a community accountability meeting in the elementary cafeteria. 47 families showed up. Derek laid out the evidence: missing funds, fake repairs, Brad's emails. Then they played Brenda's voicemails, 17 of them. It started with arrogance. "You need to return immediately and resolve this garage situation." Shifted to threats. "My husband's position gives us options you haven't considered." Then bargaining. "I'll drop all violations if you just let me explain." And finally, sobbing. "Please, Jake, I'll pay above market for your house. Just make this go away." The room was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. When the reporter turned to me for a final statement, I looked straight into the camera. "All I wanted," I said, "was to use my own garage." Turns out sometimes defending small things leads to protecting big things, like the right to exist in your own neighborhood without someone else's permission. That was it. No music, no applause, just that quiet moment when everyone finally understood what real justice looks like. Because in the end, the lesson was simple. Bullies only win when good people stay quiet.